welcome to the Spiritual Embodiment Pod. I'm your host, Samantha Redondo, a licensed therapist and embodiment coach. And in this podcast, we explore where our what meets our why, or said in another way, the intersection of spirituality and embodiment. And today I'm so excited to welcome my dear friend, Caitlin Harrison, to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, me too. So I'd love if you just introduced yourself, maybe through the lens of what identities you're coming in with today and you feel like sharing with our crew here.
Yeah. My name is Caitlin Harrison. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed in the state of California. Sam and I met in grad school, and I have lived in Southern California nearly my whole life. I spent some time in Seattle, Washington for college, and I really love the Pacific Northwest. Would love to go back there. But in terms of identities, as a therapist, I really enjoy working with folks around religious trauma, sexuality and sex, and recovering perfectionism. And so I work with folks who are deconstructing, trying to figure out how to integrate spirituality and sexuality, and that is a lot of my own work, and that is what I find really fascinating and engaging and energizing. I'm also an eldest daughter, and a Virgo, and so the recovering perfectionism part rings true for me as well. I am a mother, and I have a sweet little boy who is over a year now, and that identity has shaped me a lot too in terms of embodiment and navigating different parts of life and wonder and humanity. And I have a wonderful husband, and we live here in Pasadena area. And other identities, the only thing that is not an identity, but like, I'm a cool girl. I don't know, like that's okay. I identify as a cool girl, and like that gets to mean like so many more things. But cool is like the really small word I come back to of just like a cool girl. I do cool things. I have cool friends like you, So, and I am a white woman. I'm cis. I am very passionate about social justice and hopefully doing more than performative activism.
Yeah, definitely.
So long-winded, and that's also an identity of mine.
Yes. And that's why I'm so glad to have you on the podcast, because we have the time to be
We have the
long-winded.
time.
This is the soapbox.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here, Caitlin, because even just like what you mentioned, like the types of folks you work with, like spiritual deconstruction, sexuality, kind of sorting through that intersection for sure is tricky. And also like the perfectionistic eldest daughter, like I'm sure there's many of those folks listening who would benefit from your work and even just what you have to say today. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear, kind of in light of this spiritual trauma, spiritual deconstruction folks you work with, what is your spiritual upbringing? And tell us a bit about the spiritual context that you came from.
Yeah, totally. So I grew up in a conservative Christian church. We went to a church that, wait, sorry, did I say church or family? Okay, I grew up in a conservative Christian family. And I was thinking about the church that we grew up in. It was this church that is a evangelical free church. Yeah, and so a lot of focus on missions. So it was a small church, and so there was a lot of community, and like looking back on it, like I have more distance, and so there are a lot of like positives. Like it's very community, a lot of belonging. I felt like I had a lot of ownership in that space, and that I was like a kid that like ran around, and I got to like go behind the scenes and play hide and go seek, all over the church. So like it felt like a very familiar building. and the people. And so those are like pros, and cons being a lot of like purity culture, a lot of like sexism, only men were in the elder board, only men could preach. Women could only be worship leaders or women's ministries leaders, and certainly not have enough like power. So that's like some of the church contexts that my family was very much a part of. And then I also went to private Christian school my whole life, like including grad school. And so I, those two world, like those were my worlds outside of home. And like, so those worlds were very both confining and comfortable, like as eldest daughter, as someone who like likes being told what to do, like, and I know how to do it well. I did thrive in those situations and circumstances. Thrive in terms of like other people, like I thrived, I aced their test.
Right. I've talked about like the formula before and how I got really good at doing the
Yeah,
formula.
totally. Yes, yes, yes. I really resonated with that part of your story. Like a lot of other parts too, but like, and yeah, as I age and like, I think also in becoming a mother myself, like I have so much compassion for my parents and my upbringing. There was, my like angsty 20s self was like, oh, this is so constricting and I didn't get to do what I want. And like, yes, and I also had a very, very loving, secure home and like a lot of really wonderful special opportunities and a lot of like resilience building with just seeing how with faith as the like core, I saw my dad take a lot of really big risks, like business wise, so that he could follow something that he felt God called him to. And it meant the consequence was like really big for our family, and that we ended up going through bankruptcy. It was a bad risk, but I like see how spirituality, like the parts that have really like helped me, is that I don't really I have anxiety about some things, but like I don't have anxiety about like money generally. I'm just like being raised by like an artist who like did follow what God told him to do. Like he pursued his own efforts and my mom was very supportive. Like in that way I've seen how faith has been a very strong like motivator for doing what you want. Like encourage and like allowing you like if there's a will there's a way kind of mentality, and like also bringing our family very close together during really tough times.
Yeah, and I've seen
So
that like you and your husband are both business owners, entrepreneurs, and like do take a lot of risks, especially having a little one, but like
yeah.
you're thriving in what you're both like meant to do in the world and your purpose, which is so rad.
Totally. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I think that's absolutely right. Why I'm really like sitting with it right now, like especially of just like looking back of I feel so grateful for that model that like I'm not going to speak to Joey, my husband's like experience, but that comes a lot easier for me. Like no, like being able to take those risks and take those swings because I do feel like everything works out. Like I actually last night we were going through reorganize our garage and I was going through a bunch of old journals and so I was
Oh my gosh.
yeah in a minute. Also, so many journals that I wrote consistently for like 2 pages because I would get like I needed a new journal. Like it was my like ADHD, like
Yeah.
unknown, just like I need a perfect journal and I need to do it every single day. And then as soon as I wouldn't, I just stopped writing. So I have like 50 journals that are, barely
And you
used.
kept
But
them all. I
I
love
kept them all and I can't throw them away. But in one of them, I was reflecting on like, I was, being very wistful and waxing poetic about something, but I, like that part has been true throughout my whole life of just like I know everything's gonna work out. I know everything's gonna work out, and like I can't ever divorce that from my upbringing, like which being rooted in spirituality, rooted in faith, And yeah, now I'm not very like into the religion part, but that part feels very grounding to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a bit about, you grew up in a Christian home and church, and then, like you said, had private Christian education for your whole life. When did your experience and your attitude around religion and the church kind of start shifting?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because like looking back and since I live in the same place I grew up, I have a fair amount of friends who knew me when still, you know, like I have a lot of like high school friends and whatnot. And so in having different conversations, I think it surprises me that some friends have reflected I've always been the like kind of rebel or underdog, or at least I'm like very connect like I like social justice has always been important, but like obviously that's changed. Like I didn't have a lot of like language like in my very privileged spaces, but like coming back to like what you're asking. Yeah, so looking back, I think I was always like questioning, at least to myself. I wasn't really doing anything out loud. Like I'm thinking of like middle school, high school. I would do a lot of like testing God, like in that way of like, God, if you're real, do this. And then, you know,
Right.
God wouldn't do exactly what I wanted. And so I was like, oh man, this, I don't know. Like, and so I never questioned God, but I started questioning how the religion was working for me like in like high school. I remember some big shifts of like I didn't like what my church was doing, and I was having some like, you know, issues with it, and I went to my mom and I cuz we tithed, and like I wanted to not tithe to the church and I wanted to tithe to charity, and I made like a I thought a compelling argument, and my mom said no, and like I had to tithe to the church. Um so there were like things in high school, but then being able to go away to college in Seattle, that helped me to just have distance and being able to like do more. And so I felt more empowered. I was still in a Christian university, but like starting to have more conversations with people and like feeling very drawn to yeah, it was like when someone that I was in a play with mentioned that their friend was becoming a sex therapist. And I was like, what? That's a job? And I did some like light Googling and then made this like big shift. And I feel like that shift in like, this is what I want to do empowered me because I always would say like kind of the, I don't know, more taboo things, but like I was doing it for other people. And then like I would do it to like be a ham or like kind of get a laugh. But
Right.
then it's saying like, no, I'm going to pursue sex therapy. Like I had to start using more like ownership language, like I language of like, this is why this is important to me. Like basically there was a lot of like ally language of like,
Mm.
I think like it should be okay for other people to do this. Like other people can
Mm.
question, other people can love who they want to love. And then it was like, oh wait, what if that conversation is true for me too? Like I think I was
Mm.
always good at like helping other people.
Right.
And then a lot of the big shifts were like, wait, actually I didn't have a good time. Also, wait, what did I learn about purity culture? How did my friends like yeah. So, yeah, high school, college, there was no big like real big thing, but a lot of gradual
Yeah.
small things leading up.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of a gradual values shift, and you were
Hmm.
kind of, like you said, projecting that onto others in a way of like, oh, well, this person should be able to exist, or this person, God
Yeah.
loves this person, and like
Yeah.
kind of pushing back on maybe some of the more rigid religious things coming from church or even from your family, like with the
Hmm.
tithe. And then kind of a gradual waking up of like, oh wait, I also fall into these camps in certain ways,
Yeah.
and like identifying um, where maybe the church has been harmful to you as well.
Yes, totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And also in looking back, like I remember just in terms, oh man, this is such a funny thing. I've been thinking about a lot of like testimony
Mm.
and like having a good testimony was like very much a currency of like it was always like, the formula was like, here's the depths that I was, my rock bottom, and I
Right.
was partying and I was doing all this stuff that sounded
Yes.
like really cool. Like, and then it was like, and then God saved me. And I like always hated that I didn't have a good testimony. That was something that was,
Totally.
I
Me
was so
too.
jealous. I was like, I'm so good. I've never snuck out. I'll never do
Yeah.
anything like that. Like, I don't want to like try drugs. Like, like I don't drink. Like, so I was like, ugh, I always and I had friends who like went to public school and were getting exposed to like a lot of different things and like,
Mhm.
and they, I know they like made fun of me for being this like goody two shoes person. So I think that was part of it too, of just like the weird parts of belonging of like,
Yeah.
I belonged in the church, I belonged in the religion, but I didn't necessarily belong with my friends because they all went to public school. And like always having different pockets of people, in that way of like trying to find my belonging or where it all made sense. Like,
Mm.
so yeah, and not a lot of integration. And like that's where a big part of like being able to like fully, not fully, I don't think I'll ever fully deconstruct, but like getting to deconstruct happened in when more integration was available.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's like I experienced similar things with the doing the formula, like being really good, but then like, oh, but I don't have a great testimony, so I can't be this like superstar Christian in this way.
I
And
know.
that's like I think where some of that rub is of starting to question the formula of like, well,
Hmm.
I've been given this rule book and I've been doing it perfectly, but
Yeah.
I'm still not enough. And like my belonging is questioned in that.
Yeah. Oh, that not enough part also very huge in all of my journals. Like it's always just like I have to change this. A lot of like having to change my body and like all this stuff. Just such sadness. Like which that's a whole nother TED talk I'm not gonna get into. But like I fortunately never had like fully disordered eating. I think we all are pretty disordered in that we're not like really intuitive eaters. But yeah, just like I think purity culture goes hand in hand with like
Yeah.
wanting your body to be pure and like valuable. And like if we're putting the terms of value through the lens of like white supremacy and the patriarchy, then that's going to equate like thinness. And there's
Right.
also, then let's add in all the messaging around like fasting and
Mm.
I don't know. It just like it's rife in the. I think that's a part too of like when we're talking about being a body, like being a body in the church of like how do I view my own body, um, and I think that comes back to like my story of like my body was always for others. It was never for myself, and so
Wow.
that's been so much of my journey too. I have some health stuff that like I don't feel like it's TMI, but I'm not gonna share on a podcast because other people are gonna. Anyway, I have some health stuff, and basically I had to have a surgery in it was like an emergency surgery in 2011. It was like my first year of undergrad, and it was like my first month, and I had to. It was like a pretty like emergent, kind of invasive thing. And then, and it was okay, but it was healing. And the doctor told me it would heal in like 2 to 6 years, which is crazy. Crazy for a doctor to say that. Like, no, that's not an accurate like window. But because of past like, for a little bit, we didn't have health insurance and some like health stuff, whatever, medical distress, like I just took that doctor's word, didn't get a second opinion. And so, but with that, I was dealing with the consequences of that, like unhealed, like, uh, I don't know, procedure,
Issue.
like issue. And but my mom like finally helped me to like and made it to be like a bigger like raise the urgency on it right before I was going to get married. Like so it had been 6 years. This thing had not resolved. I hadn't ended up and like not that, I was an adult. I could have gone to the doctor by myself, but it's just interesting to me that in her eyes before I was going to be intimate or whatever, like before my wedding, that was when the issue needed to be resolved. Not could it be resolved like for me so that I could
Mm,
have lived a easier life. It was like,
yeah.
oh wait, you're gonna get married and someone's gonna see your body for the first time.
Mm,
But so that story of like my body not being my own or not being like things not being good enough just for me, like is even in this like thread and in this world. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
And interesting how, it sounds like that was kind of a part of purity culture, but then also
Mhm.
like some of the modeling from your mom too, of like when your body is valuable is when someone
Yeah.
else is going to see it, in that context of marriage and just,
Hmm.
when your body deserves to have care, really.
Yeah. 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 I think there's a lot of layers there of like, yeah, how, yeah, caring for your body and like what is deserved and what isn't like indulgent and what's allowed like a lot of like permissible language that may not have been super outright but like I mean sometimes it was but like was very ingrained in the culture.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about your journey with your body, like to present. You shared a
Hmm.
bit about the past, but
Hmm.
how does it feel to be a body for you now?
Mm. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about it since I've been binging your podcast, but and hopefully I'm thinking about it more and more as I grow up. Um, yeah, it's really it just keeps evolving and like I think about yeah, I can't not talk about like becoming a mom and being pregnant like in this journey of like embodiment.
Mhm.
So, because like basically a couple years ago, got pregnant, had a miscarriage like shortly after,
Mhm.
and then had it took a couple years to get pregnant with the pregnancy that now I was able to have my son with. And going into that pregnancy, already having a miscarriage, and that was my only experience with like
Mhm.
pregnancy.
Right.
I had carried so much anxiety into that pregnancy. And so, and there was a lot of like also external factors and stress in my life at the time. Um, and so I felt very disassociated from my body. I did not experience like a lot of the joy or presence. Like, I felt very like head only um and it was a weird situation where I had hardly any symptoms like thank goodness like
Mhm.
but so I didn't even have like that part. I didn't have like nausea. I didn't have like all of these other I had general discomfort but I think it was just like a big sign of like how I'm also used to that. Like I'm used to it's taking a lot of work to and ongoing work to get more in touch with my body and actually like be aware and take signal and cue from my body. And so just being riddled with that anxiety of like, I don't know if this pregnancy will make it.
Right.
And also, it was deemed like a high risk pregnancy. And so there was just even more information of like, you know, it's probably not likely. Um, so now, and then being able to have a successful pregnancy and like have a son, now I'm feeling a lot more safety in my body.
Mm.
And so I feel more room to like explore and like And so embodiment also continues to come back to like presence of like the more present I am, the more I'm able to feel like the spectrum and like being able to just the magic of like being able to watch a baby and like a kid
Mm.
like grow up and explore and like that wonder um, feels very it's such a teacher for me of like how to feel, how to slow down, how to like last night he was like in the bathtub and he started like flexing his big toe and it was like I've never done this before. Like that was his experience and I was like, yeah, whoa, it's so cool. And like I'm focusing on my big toe and I'm like, big toes, like like it's amazing that this is all connected. So um yeah, so being a body feels very wondrous right now, and expansive. Um, but it's certainly, I feel like I'm at the beginning of that journey because there's been so much like, yeah, just, yeah, being a body wasn't safe growing up. Like, yeah, it was just, you know, having experiences like feeling taken advantage of and just like not giving language of like how to protect myself
Mm.
or modeling for how to protect myself. Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it just feels like very much like I'm on my own. I get to be on my own terms now.
Yes. Oh,
Hmm.
that's so beautiful. And the anxiety makes so much sense, especially with pregnancy loss and
Yeah.
even like lack of symptoms can bring anxiety. You're
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, is you hear like nausea is a good sign. It means you have
Hmm.
a healthy pregnancy. And so to feel like disconnected from symptoms even or having less symptoms, which is totally normal. And obviously you
Hmm.
had a healthy pregnancy with that. But
Hmm.
man, it's such a kind of like swirly process to always be interpreting what your body's experiencing or not experiencing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, also, let's just add in that is not nearly enough information or research around women's bodies, like because of course there's not funding and but it is so frustrating for you to like Google any sort of symptom and it's like, well, you could be on your period, you could be pregnant, or you could be dead. Like, it's just
Right.
like, we don't know. Everything's normal in that nothing's normal for you kind. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's so silly.
So
But,
silly. And I'm so grateful for like Reddit and
yeah.
Emily Oster is a great
Yes,
resource.
yes,
She's like
yes.
a literal economist, but she was just
Mhm.
like good at data. So when she was pregnant, like did a bunch of research of like, why do doctors say you can't eat sushi? Why do doctors say
Yeah.
this thing? Like, I don't want a vague recommendation. I want actual
Right.
data. So like for any of you trying to become pregnant or are pregnant, I highly
Hmm.
recommend Emily Oster's books.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's like wild that someone that like an economist would have to write books like that. It's
Totally.
like where I mean, I love there's so many doctors doing so much great work for women's
Yes.
health, but also I'm like, you know, where are the doctors and medical researchers who are pushing back? And I think so much of their experience is like their hands are tied by the
Hmm.
system.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
totally. I blame the system. Yeah. Like, yeah. Yeah, we gotta put our money where we want it to go, and it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
So, a small leap. I'm curious
Mhm.
how some of this shows up this like social justice advocacy, especially around women's health, like as a sex therapist for you.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think it's a leap at all. I can connect anything, but yeah, it's a great question. I feel very. I think there's so many ways to answer this, but right now I'm feeling connected to like the power of language, like even um like and coming back to some theme of like ownership, like for a while I didn't even want to call myself like a sex therapist because I'm not certified. I'm not like so I would always say like I'm a therapist who like focuses in sex therapy. And it wasn't until recently that I was having a conversation with someone who is a sex therapist, like a certified sex therapist, and she was like, you're a sex therapist. This is the work that you do. And so like being
Right.
able to like claim that. So I say that as part of like
And what you mean by certified is there like a certain
yes,
organization that certifies sex therapists,
thank you.
but you're
Yeah.
still a certified therapist. So,
Correct. I'm still an actual certified therapist and like I I focus in sex therapy. Like that is a type of therapy and like language that I use and like also an approach and like there's research and I've done training. So I'm not like an officially certified sex therapist, but I bring that into like advocacy, like the power of language. Like um, there's so many, I am grateful for so many more resources around sex specifically for women, of like coming back to like being able to name what is normal and what isn't normal, and like that being a very like big spectrum of like everything's normal. Like I love that's how Dr. I'm trying to look at her book right now, Come As You Are, Emily Nagoski. She like starts that book with talking about she's like, if you are having any like issues with sex, like and you're wondering if it's normal, like you are, it's normal,
yeah.
like it's normal because it's happening to you. And so I think about, yeah, the power of language of like, okay, there's power in me being able to say I'm a sex therapist and what that means like when I'm relating to people of like more, I feel more empowered by it. I feel more encouraged by like the work that I'm doing, but also like the power of language of like advocating for yourself of hey, this is what's happening for me. This is what's happening in my body. Like I have to be able to talk about it like with someone, and that's what a lot of my sessions look like of like I haven't told anybody this before, but this is what this is like for me, or this is
Yeah.
what happened to me. Um, and so like that value like of being able to advocate for yourself, and like that's why I think therapy is so sacred of like people being able to say things out loud that they haven't been able to before, so that I can then hold that information with them of like, okay, you're not alone in this. And what's beautiful is now I get to direct you to resources that I know about, because this world is so much bigger than you may think. Like there are so many other people advocating for you, or so many other people who have your same or very similar lived experience. Like
Right.
so that felt very long-winded, and I'm feeling a little bit of chagrin of maybe bringing myself too much into that conversation. But like I don't know, the language part, like the that part, language and advocacy, and like um, connecting with that feels very important.
Yeah. Oh, I
Mhm.
think that's so beautifully said. And I think, sex is such an embodied experience and that like it is fully in our bodies. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily in like our more prefrontal cortex, like mental processing. And so it takes some work to like bring that embodied experience into our language center of our brain. And so like you even modeling that with clients of like how we talk about these things that might feel untalkable or
Mhm.
taboo or just like so scary, and I've never said this out loud before, can
Mhm.
help to model like how we talk about consent with our sexual partners, how
Mhm.
we, name what we like and what we don't like, our yes and our
Mhm.
no. Like that is all embodiment work, but it's
Yes.
bringing that experience of our body into a way that like we can actually communicate to the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm thinking of two people right now. Cindy Sharkey, she's a nurse and sex educator. She has this podcast called Permission for Pleasure, and she has a book of the same name. And one of the things that she'll talk about is like that it's each person's job, like if you want to achieve orgasm, it's like that's your work, that's your
Mm.
responsibility. And like I think in that lens, I think it's really helpful of like it's helped me to reframe for myself and clients too of just like, okay, what you're saying, like this embodiment work, like, okay, if this is something that I'm hopeful for, like, and I'm having trouble with it, like, yeah, there's a lot of systems, there are a lot of reasons why it's maybe hard to achieve. And what's the work that I need to do to slow down, to be able to feel safe? Like, how do I communicate my yeses and nos? Like, to have an orgasm, like, you have to be very safe. Like, you have to, like, be able to experience and receive pleasure and joy. And you're talking about prefrontal cortex, like, you have to, like, be able to let your brain like turn off for a second
Yeah,
like
let go.
like, you have to let go, yeah which for recovering perfectionists, which for people who grew up in the church, really hard to let go. Like that's why my specialties, my niches, whatever, like they all touch each other. Like
Right.
it's all the same person. Like, so um yeah, so the embodiment work. So I'm thinking about Cindy Sharkey and like her research and like knowledge and just how important information is and like being able to like share that and have like what we're saying, like being able to talk about it. And then I'm also thinking of our friend Kate France Saunders. I always mess up her name, but she is a trauma-informed yoga instructor that you've worked very closely with, and like
Yes. Hope to have her on the podcast soon.
yes, oh, absolutely. And she has said something years ago to me that really stuck with me of like our bodies are truth tellers, and like that is something that I hold dear of like, okay, when I'm in my body, when I'm listening to my body, when I'm aware, when am an embodied person and remembering that and like leading with that, my body's going to tell the truth. And so that's going to relate to sex, obviously. It's going to relate to every other part of our life of like what's showing up in my body. Like how is my body communicating to me right now to let me know that either I'm not safe or I am safe or I'm excited or not excited or yeah, that I'm wanting this, that this feels containing, like and to that point, I think if there are any questions around what sex therapy is, like um, sex therapy, you're fully clothed, okay? I'm not. It is
There's no
just
actual sex happening in the
no
therapy.
actual sex, just a conversation.
Yes. Where we talk
And
about sex
we
and
talk about
sexuality.
sex and sexuality and the parts though that I am able to like bring in more embody. I am a very like embodiment forward therapist and like try to bring in somatic practices as well, where you know that can start in the therapy space where you're learning. I'm going to reflect to you, oh hey, your knees bouncing up and down when you said that. Did you notice that? Let's slow down because I don't really even, as someone who talks a lot of times I don't even care what people are saying, right? Like like I talk a lot, but like I'm wanting to quiet people down audibly, voice wise sometimes, so that your body can be a little bit more clear and like focused on. Like, oh, did you realize you were feeling anxious when you said that thing? Like, let's slow down. Let's try to like create a different environment. Let's pay attention. I think you were talking about this in which podcast? I think when you were talking about chronic illness and being able to like notice and connect with the part of your body and like when you were having like the neck pain and stuff and like the power there of like we have to slow down and like I know for myself too, I know that work of like, oh, I'm feeling so anxious and blah, 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 and I'm spiraling, crazy. And then you just like put a hand on your chest. And you're like, ah, here I am. There I am. Okay. Um, so yeah, here I am yapping. But yeah, I get excited. Everything touches each other. And
Yes.
we're bodies and we have sex and like and we don't and let's talk about it. Like it's all connected.
Yes. And I think that's something that's like many of us who grew up in the church, that's like a missing piece of like sex either wasn't talked about at all or it was talked about in a way that it was like kind of like othered, like over there for married people with a lot of like
Yes.
mystery or talked about as like a sin, you know, and it's like it wasn't talked about in a way of just like this is part of being a body. This is part of being human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. That part also of like the after marriage like thing, it is so wild to me like what is like I've come to find out that like there's a lot of very conservative Christians like there's a lot of like kink like that's allowed post marriage because within marriage it's okay. It's not, you
Right.
know, whatever. And I think
Hmm.
that's so interesting where it's like the ways that very conservative Christians will like find the loophole. I mean, humans. This isn't just
Right.
conservative Christians. It's like, okay,
Right.
so you want anal. You want that's not even that kinky. But like I'm trying to like figure out that wasn't PG. But you know,
Doesn't have
you
to be preachy.
thank you. Okay. You want to be tied up. You want something, right? But
Hmm.
oh, now that you're married, it's allowed and like you get to talk about it and it's you have different language for it. Oh, it's for
Right.
my husband, whatever. It's like, okay, girl, just say you want to be tied up. Like just say like you know, I don't know. Again, coming back to permission for pleasure is just like there's so much if we just gave ourselves permission and it's not just individual had the context had the environment like community is very important of like that's why I love gossip, that's why I love yapping. Gossip is just like information sharing and that
Mm.
also was so much part of my journey too of like I didn't know until I was like 22 that I could like get a vibrator. I didn't know that was
Yeah.
like allowed. It was like
Yeah.
at brunch and my friend like casually dropped in. She's like, "Oh yeah, and didn't go on a date and I just used my vibrator." I was like, "What? What are we
What
doing?
is
What's going
that?
on?" So, so yeah, we gotta gossip. We gotta share.
Right. Like the girls know. I feel like that's
Well,
so much of the
no.
learning from the girls.
Yes. Yes. We trust girls, we trust black women. If they said it, I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, what is your favorite thing about being a body in this season?
I think breath. Inhale and exhale. I've been thinking a lot about the both and like we recently celebrated Easter and with each like Christian holiday that comes up, I'm always trying to figure out how it makes sense in my world and like what rituals and practices. Um, and with Easter, there's so much like you know, it's spring, it's rebirth, it's coming out of winter, um, and that's just like the natural world. And like, if I want to hold the story of resurrection and like, um, I think there's so much there of like, you know, obviously death and life. And I think about in reflecting on pregnancy, um, like I think about my body has held death and my body has held
Mm.
life.
Wow.
And like that is so crazy to think about. And I feel like the emotions and I feel the tears and like
Mm.
um to be a woman and to be able to hold that and like experience that within myself, but also not to be the only one, to have a very shared individual collective experience is so magical. Like
Yeah.
to be a body, ugh, to be a girl, to be a woman, I just like, we're so cool. And like, we should just talk about it all the time. Like, and that's why this is existing, this podcast, this space. It's just like yeah, it just the both hands that we hold that men could never. And like, I'm working on my I hate men language, but you know, married to a man, raising a boy, like, but obviously I hate men is more a systemic thing. But yeah, men could never. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
there's so much both and there's so much richness,
Yeah.
and not just internally. There's just been a lot of grief around me in my circles, and like, um, and I'm holding that while also holding that this is some of like the most joy filled times that I've been having because of my son, because of just trying to experience life in a new way, having my own practice, not being part of a toxic group. Feels good.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so beautifully said. And like, reminds me of my conversation with Morgan too, of how
Mhm.
motherhood just like deepens that visceral, like here and now reality of being human, of like we are constantly so connected to life and death at once.
Yes.
And
Yep.
like motherhood just makes you like so sensitized to that reality.
Totally. Totally. Oh, yeah. 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 I'm not, yeah, it's so interesting. I'm a very, like, I think if you're able to have a kid with, like, another person, the beauty of, like, hopefully the balancing a partnership of, like, my husband is a lot more anxious than I am. And so, like, I don't, I'll let my son play with almost anything. I'm like, yeah, explore, figure it out. And Joey is like, I don't like that. And so I think my son's getting a good balance. But yeah, so it's interesting. Like, I want him to experience all the things. And like, I was holding him yesterday, and then we're walking, I rolled my ankle, and I'm carrying him. And so I'm like trying to fall well so that I'm gonna
Right.
get everything. And then I'm squeezing him so tight. So he's crying because like he's scared, but he didn't drop. I was able to like save him and whatever. But it's like, oh my God, stuff like this happens all the time where you could just like hit your head and die. But anyway, life and death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is actually the reality we're all living in all the time. But I think being a
Yes.
parent like actually makes you aware of it and like wake up
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Also, we could talk about that for a lot longer of like how I started caring for my body when being pregnant, even though I was just like but I'm like taking my vitamins, I'm eating well, I'm moving, like, I'm like doing things that would be helpful for me all the time, but I'm doing it because it's not just for me anymore, Like, and that's a whole other.
Yeah. Which
Hmm.
also like makes sense with the programming you had growing up of like your bodies for other people. Like sometimes we
Yeah,
have to kind of go through those channels that are familiar of
right.
like getting medical care because you're going to get married and like, you know, eating well and moving because you're going to have a baby. But like I'm sure you built some tools and some skills during that time that carry into now.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yes, yeah, yeah. Yes, nothing is all or nothing.
Right. The
Hmm.
both and.
The both hands. Yeah.
So ready for a little bit of like rapid fire
Let's
questions
do
as
it.
we wrap up?
Hmm.
Okay. So the first is this is kind of like finish the statement.
Okay.
I'm most myself when I'm
Hosting friends and eating a croissant.
yes. I can picture it. So
Hmm.
good. Being a body is
Magic.
God feels like
A kind woman.
beautiful. This season I'm leaning into.
Sweating. As like a bigger person, I don't like summer. Like I hate chafing and sweating,
Yeah.
and like it just, yeah, it can be tough. Like I look cuter in fall winter clothes. I love layering.
Totally.
And so but again, the kid of it all, I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna be outside." He loves being outside, so I'm like,
And like holding a tiny body on
Oh,
you, making you
yeah,
hotter.
that part. Yeah, yeah. Like he's not walking yet. Like he's not doing it himself. So like, yeah, carrying around that. So, yeah. So I'm like, I'm gonna be sweating, and I'm trying to like reframe it for myself of just like, we're just out here. We're outside. We're
We're
sweating.
sweaty.
We're getting
Yeah.
messy. It's good. We can
Yeah.
take a shower later. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's such a like weird social taboo, like that you can't be sweaty.
I know.
I think we
Yeah.
should just embrace being sweaty. Like it's one thing if you
Yes.
like smell really bad, like put some
Sure.
deodorant on, it's okay.
Sure.
Like
Yeah, we
I
have
get
tools
that
for
some
that.
people have, yeah,
Yeah.
things going on in their body where maybe they smell differently and that's okay.
Hmm.
But sweat is natural and good
Very.
and
Yeah.
just embrace
It's
it.
more of a problem if we're not sweating. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So I love that you're leaning into being sweaty.
Trying.
Was there anything else that you want to say that you feel like we didn't get to today?
I mean, I feel like we could keep talking for hours,
Yeah.
so yeah. No, I mean, there's so much. Yeah, I guess I didn't talk about smut and like that being really helpful, and like I
Yes.
love like fiction, and my whole thing is like that we should stop reading and consuming as much like self-help stuff, and like be consuming more of like media that makes us feel.
Mhm.
And so
Which is often like fiction and
often
fantasy
fiction
and
and
romance.
fantasy and smut and yeah, and romance. And so, yeah, I started this book club called Self Help Smut Club. And right now we're meeting in a bookstore in Monrovia, Black Cat Fables. And it's just been a start of a really lovely community of people who are like showing up in person, which being in person also feels really, really good right now in the age of
Mm.
AI. And so I'm really trying to like foster more in person community, um, therapeutically and personally, but that feels like a really big call this year. Um, and we could talk about how that connects to like wanting to create more spaces that felt like church, and but in a way that feels good now. But
Yeah.
being
Smut
together.
church.
Yeah, Smut Church. Amen. We do meet on Sundays, so.
I love that. Is there any, like, I'm curious, like, what book are you guys reading right now? Any books that you're like, need to recommend?
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. I try to like have a diverse like pick, but our next one we meet in May. It's a bi-monthly club. So we meet
Mhm.
May, I believe, 24th. It's Sunday, and we're meeting reading Red, White, and Royal Blue. Which I haven't read any of the books that we've picked, and so I'm reading along with
Mhm.
folks. And that
So
one
fun.
is it's a gay male like romance, and it's like the president's son and then like some British like
Ooh.
royalty. It was made into a movie that I heard was terrible, so we're going to be reading the book because the book's beloved.
Okay. It feels
But
like gay. What's that movie? Chasing Liberty? Like that
yes, 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 yes,
vibe?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh my God, yes. I hope so. I hope that's what it feels like. But one of my favorites so far has been Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and it's totally blanking on the author.
It's
There's a
okay. We can
series
put it
of
in the show
three.
notes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was the second one. They're like standalone, but they're connected. I really love that one. And um, yeah, yeah,
So fun.
it's fun.
So how can people work with you, follow
Hmm.
you, get to know you more?
Yeah. On Instagram, my Instagram is at Caitlin Harrison Therapy. Um, and then my therapy practice is called Mirror Moments Therapy. So you can go to mirrormomentstherapy.com. And then information for Self Help Smut Club. Hopefully, I'll be resharing stuff on Instagram. And then, if not, through Black Cat Fables right now. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yay. Yeah, so if you want therapy support, especially if you're in
Hmm.
California, for spiritual trauma, spiritual deconstruction, sex therapy,
Hmm.
eldest daughter, perfectionist, all of the above,
Yeah.
follow Caitlin, reach out on Mirror Moments. I'll put it all in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend, for being
Thank
here,
you,
for
my
the lovely
friend.
conversation, for
Yes.
just being girls together.
I love being girls. Yay.
I love it. So grateful for you.
Yeah. Thanks for having
And
me.
if you want to hear more episodes, you can subscribe to the podcast, Spiritual Embodiment
Mhm.
Pod, on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram at Spiritual Embodiment Pod. And then if you want to explore embodiment coaching with me or therapy with me, you can have a free discovery call at the link in our show notes. All right, friends, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.